The Border Patrol agent was certain the black man with the diplomatic passport was using fraudulent documents and called for a supervisor. But when the State Department duty officer answered the phone, the agent realized he had just detained a senior diplomat returning from peace negotiations in Africa.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and a comment before we start to learn more about what happened.
The fluorescent lights of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport's immigration control area cast harsh shadows across the federal inspection stations, where U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents processed thousands of international travelers. Daily Terminal D's diplomatic arrivals section typically handled a steady stream of foreign dignitaries, embassy staff, and government officials whose special status required careful verification and expedited processing. Ambassador David Thompson walked through the jet bridge after the 14-hour flight from Johannesburg, carrying his leather diplomatic pouch and official State Department briefcase that contained sensitive documents from 3 weeks of intensive peace negotiations between South African mining companies and labor unions. At 41, Thompson had served as a career diplomat for 16 years, representing American interests in complex international disputes across 4 continents. Thompson's successful mediation in South Africa had prevented a nationwide strike that could have disrupted global mineral markets and threatened regional economic stability. The agreements he had negotiated would ensure fair labor practices while maintaining productivity levels essential for international supply chains. His diplomatic work had earned recognition from both the White House and international partners who valued his expertise in conflict resolution. Customs and Border Protection Agent Maria Rodriguez was completing her 6th hour of immigration duty, processing diplomatic arrivals that required enhanced security screening and document verification protocols. At 34, Rodriguez had worked for CBP for 7 years, specializing in detecting fraudulent travel documents and identifying security threats among international travelers claiming diplomatic status. Rodriguez's training emphasized vigilance in verifying diplomatic credentials, as criminal organizations occasionally attempted to exploit diplomatic channels for smuggling operations or immigration fraud. Her success in identifying fake diplomatic passports and forged official documents had earned commendations from supervisors who valued her attention to detail and commitment to border security. When Thompson approached Rodriguez's inspection station and presented his maroon diplomatic passport bearing the Gold Eagle seal of the United States Department of State, Rodriguez immediately began her standard verification procedures for diplomatic travel documents. "Good evening," Thompson said respectfully, handing over his passport and diplomatic identification. "I'm returning from official State Department business in South Africa." Rodriguez examined the diplomatic passport carefully, noting its pristine condition and official markings that identified Thompson as Ambassador David Thompson, Senior Diplomatic Officer, U.S. Department of State. The document appeared authentic, but Rodriguez was trained to scrutinize all diplomatic credentials, regardless of their apparent legitimacy. "Purpose of your travel?" Rodriguez asked, cross-referencing Thompson's information with her computer databases. "Peace negotiations between mining companies and labor unions in Johannesburg," Thompson replied. "I was serving as the official U.S. mediator in the dispute." Rodriguez studied Thompson's appearance, noting his casual travel clothing and youthful features that seemed inconsistent with her expectations for a senior diplomat. In her experience, high-ranking State Department officials typically presented themselves with formal attire and an authoritative demeanor that matched their prestigious positions. "How long were you in South Africa?" Rodriguez continued her questioning. 3 weeks, Thompson answered. "The negotiations required extended sessions to reach comprehensive agreements." Rodriguez was beginning to form doubts about Thompson's diplomatic status. His age appeared too young for senior diplomatic responsibilities. His casual appearance seemed inappropriate for someone representing American interests internationally, and his calm demeanor during questioning struck her as potentially deceptive. "Sir, I'm going to need to conduct additional verification of your documents," Rodriguez announced, placing Thompson's passport in a secure holding folder. Thompson was surprised by the extended scrutiny, as diplomatic passports typically received expedited processing. "Is there a specific issue with my credentials?" Rodriguez avoided answering directly. "I'm following standard procedures for diplomatic travel verification." Thompson understood that some additional screening was normal, but Rodriguez's suspicious attitude suggested something beyond routine verification. "Agent Rodriguez, I have my State Department identification, my diplomatic orders, and documentation of my official mission." Rodriguez examined the additional documents while maintaining her skeptical assessment of Thompson's legitimacy. The paperwork appeared professional and detailed, but sophisticated forgeries were increasingly common in international travel fraud. "These documents will require supervisor review," Rodriguez declared, signaling for her shift supervisor to approach the inspection station. Supervisor James Peterson arrived within minutes, bringing 15 years of CBP experience and expertise in diplomatic protocol verification. "Agent Rodriguez, what's the situation?" Rodriguez gestured toward Thompson. "Subject is presenting diplomatic credentials that require enhanced verification. Something seems inconsistent about his documentation." Peterson examined Thompson's diplomatic passport and supporting documents, noting the official seals, proper formatting, and security features that indicated authentic State Department issuance. "Sir," Peterson addressed Thompson, "we're going to need to conduct additional verification of your diplomatic status. Please follow Agent Rodriguez to the secondary inspection area." Thompson was now concerned about the escalating scrutiny. "Supervisor Peterson, I'm a career diplomat returning from official business. These documents are genuine State Department credentials." Peterson maintained his professional demeanor while exercising caution about potential document fraud. "Sir, we're required to verify all diplomatic claims thoroughly. This is standard procedure." Thompson was escorted to a secure secondary inspection room where his diplomatic pouch and briefcase were set aside for potential examination. As a career diplomat, Thompson understood that border security required careful verification, but the extended detention suggested suspicions beyond routine screening. "Agent Rodriguez," Thompson said calmly, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding about my diplomatic status. I suggest you contact the State Department Operations Center to verify my credentials." Rodriguez interpreted Thompson's suggestion as an attempt to pressure authorities into accepting questionable documents. "Sir, we'll conduct verification through proper channels." Thompson realized that his diplomatic immunity was being questioned based on assumptions about his appearance and age. "Agent Rodriguez, I'm requesting that you contact the State Department immediately to confirm my diplomatic status." Rodriguez decided to escalate the matter further. "Supervisor Peterson, I recommend we contact our document fraud specialists. These credentials may require forensic analysis." Peterson was beginning to have doubts about Rodriguez's assessment as Thompson's documents appeared authentic and his demeanor remained professional despite extended detention. "Agent Rodriguez," Peterson said carefully, "why don't you call the State Department Operations Center to verify Ambassador Thompson's credentials?" Rodriguez reluctantly agreed to make the verification call, though she remained convinced that Thompson was attempting some form of diplomatic impersonation. The State Department Operations Center answered Rodriguez's call within 2 rings. "Operations Center, this is Duty Officer Collins." "This is CBP Agent Rodriguez at DFW Airport. I need verification of diplomatic credentials for someone claiming to be Ambassador David Thompson." There was a brief pause before Collins responded with unmistakable concern. Agent Rodriguez, Ambassador Thompson is one of our senior diplomatic officers. He's been conducting peace negotiations in South Africa for the past 3 weeks. Is there a problem with his return? Rodriguez felt her confidence wavering. We're conducting routine verification of his diplomatic status. Collins's tone became more serious. Agent Rodriguez, Ambassador Thompson holds one of the highest security clearances in the State Department. His diplomatic immunity is absolute, and any detention requires immediate notification to the Secretary of State's office. Rodriguez stared at Thompson, who was waiting patiently in the secondary inspection area, unaware of the phone conversation that was confirming his legitimate diplomatic status. Collins continued, Agent Rodriguez, Ambassador Thompson just concluded negotiations that prevented a major international economic crisis. His work in South Africa has been briefed to the White House and congressional leadership. Rodriguez realized she had made a catastrophic error in judgment. Sir, we were just conducting standard verification procedures. Agent Rodriguez, Collins said firmly, Ambassador Thompson should have been expedited through diplomatic channels. How long has he been detained? Rodriguez checked her watch. About 90 minutes. Collins was clearly alarmed. 90 minutes? Agent Rodriguez, you've detained a senior U.S. diplomat for an hour and a half without cause. This is going to require a formal incident report. Rodriguez returned to the secondary inspection area where Thompson was reading diplomatic cables on his secure phone. Ambassador Thompson, I apologize for the delay. Your credentials have been verified. Thompson looked up from his phone. Agent Rodriguez, I've been detained for over an hour despite presenting valid diplomatic credentials. Can you explain the reason for this treatment? Rodriguez struggled to provide a satisfactory explanation. Sir, we were conducting routine verification procedures. Thompson stood and gathered his diplomatic materials. Agent Rodriguez, routine verification doesn't typically require 90 minutes of detention for a senior diplomat. What specific concerns did you have about my credentials? Rodriguez was forced to confront the discriminatory nature of her suspicions. Your documentation appeared unusual for someone of your apparent age. Thompson understood immediately. Agent Rodriguez, you detained me because you assumed I was too young to be a senior diplomat. Rodriguez couldn't deny the accusation. I was exercising appropriate caution. Thompson collected his diplomatic pouch and briefcase. Agent Rodriguez, what you exercised was discriminatory judgment based on assumptions about age and appearance. Supervisor Peterson approached the conversation, having been briefed on the State Department's response. Ambassador Thompson, I apologize for this incident. Agent Rodriguez made an error in judgment. Thompson addressed both officers. This incident represents more than an error in judgment. It demonstrates assumptions about who can hold senior positions in American diplomacy. Peterson nodded. Ambassador Thompson, we'll be conducting a full review of this incident. Thompson was finally cleared for entry after nearly 2 hours of detention. The State Department Operations Center filed a formal complaint with CBP headquarters, leading to an investigation of Rodriguez's decision-making process. Rodriguez was required to complete additional training on diplomatic protocol, bias awareness, and proper verification procedures for diplomatic travelers. The incident became part of CBP training curriculum, demonstrating how assumptions about age and appearance can lead to inappropriate treatment of legitimate diplomatic personnel. Peterson implemented new protocols requiring immediate supervisor consultation before extended detention of diplomatic travelers. Thompson returned to Washington, where he briefed senior State Department officials on both his successful negotiations in South Africa and his treatment at the border upon return. The peace agreements Thompson had negotiated in South Africa were implemented successfully, preventing economic disruption and establishing frameworks for future labor relations. CBP revised its diplomatic processing procedures to emphasize respectful treatment and efficient verification of authentic diplomatic credentials. And Agent Rodriguez learned that diplomatic service comes in many forms, and that assumptions about who represents American interests internationally can create serious diplomatic incidents and damage America's relationships with its own diplomats. Because sometimes the most important negotiations happen not in foreign capitals, but at our own borders, where respect for diplomatic service and professional competence must overcome assumptions about age, appearance, and who deserves to represent American values abroad.